Hi, everyone. Good morning. Thanks for joining us today. I can see we've still got some people joining us, but we've got a great group. Great to see lots of familiar names in the attendees list. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Laura Joldersma. I'm Director of Product Management at DFnet. I just passed my 10th year anniversary at DFnet, so I've been working with the software team to enhance, expand, and support DFdiscover and all our product offerings. And I'm based in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. And so Laura's asking in the chat which team we're supporting, and I'm supporting Team Canada all the way. Before we get started, I'm just going to have a couple of housekeeping notes. If you have any comments or questions during the webinar, we have both the chat and the Q&A enabled for this. So feel free to add in comments or questions throughout the webinar, and we'll have some Q&A time at the end. As always, we have the software team attending as well, so you might be getting some answers just in the chat as we go through. I know some people in the past have had issues with the chat, so the Q&A should work for you, but hopefully that all works for everyone. We know Teams can be a little bit troublesome sometimes. For those people who can't stay till the end, or if you want to be able to share this recording with any colleagues later on, the recording will be available in the next few days. So you'll get an email with that link, so you can see that later on. And we have recordings of all our previous webinars on our DFnet website, dfnetresearch.com. We have a resources section, and the Knowledge Hub is where all our previous webinars are located, so you can find them there. So I'm excited to be joined today by Emily MacKenzie. She joined DFnet earlier this year, so a lot of you won't have met her yet or heard her name, but we're really happy to have her on the team. I'm going to hand it over to her to get us started.
All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. As Laura mentioned, my name is Emily MacKenzie, and I am going to advance one slide. Is that for me to do? Huzzah! Thank you. As Laura mentioned, I joined earlier this year in February. I'm leading the software team as well as our study management team. I have over 25 years of software engineering experience, mostly in the healthcare space, specifically working in healthcare IT, diagnostic imaging, vendor-neutral archive development, things like that. I started my career out as a software developer, and then have held various engineering leadership roles over my career over the last 10 to 15 years. So I am based in Waterloo, Ontario, also in Ontario, and thrilled to be here today and talk a little bit about the latest updates on DFdiscover. So first off, thank you all so much for your feedback. Your input absolutely shapes the priorities of each of our releases, so keep that coming. A quick mention of what's included in this release from a packaging perspective. So you'll see we've got a new DFdiscover server, an API, as well as DFweb and DFcollect. Also included is a new DFengage package for both mobile and web, and a maintenance update for the DFsources mobile app. So all these updates all became available in the App Store, on the web, and on our DFnet managed servers as of June 13th. DFdiscover 5.11 and DFengage 2.5 are our second releases in just over 6 months after our November 2025 release of DFdiscover 5.10 and DFengage 2.4. So as a reminder, here are some of the highlights of what became available in November. We added ePro management to DFweb, providing a new tool for site staff and study teams using DFengage. DFengage is now a web app as well as a mobile app to allow participants to complete activities without downloading an app. We enhanced DFengage's login process with a new login flow, as well as forgot password and two-factor authentication capabilities. And we added further features to DFdiscover to support EDC security and setup. So why so much focus on DFengage? Participants are essential to the quality of clinical research, and tools like DFengage can help support that. They support decentralized, virtual, or hybrid trials, allowing participants to complete questionnaires and outcome assessments without traveling to a site. This helps reduce the burden for site staff, reducing the number of procedures and activities they do directly with the participants, while providing real-time access and oversight to patient data directly in the EDC. It also improves data quality and protocol compliance by capturing data directly from the participants using familiar and easy to use technologies like their mobile phone or their computer. And here's what we have in our releases across DFweb, DFcollect, DFengage, and general EDC updates. You can see here the release slides, what we've got coming. I'm going to pass it over to Laura, and she's going to go into more detail into the new functionality coming in these releases.
Thanks, Emily. So one of our key features in 5.11 and 2.5 is custom push notifications in DFengage mobile. So I'll be talking about that to start off with, but we've also added some new features to DFweb. We've made some updates to DFcollect, some EDC, general EDC updates, as well as some of the server-side application updates and security and maintenance updates as well. So let's talk about the custom push notifications for DFengage. So this is a new capability to expand on the reminders that participants can receive when they're using the DFengage mobile app. So this adds more flexible notification timing so that you can adapt to what your study needs instead of using the current generic standard set timing for the reminders. And you can also customize the content of the notification. So for each time point or for all notifications, you can customize the message that the participant will see in the notification. And this new configuration that we've added, it's only supported for the push notifications for participants using DFengage mobile, and they're supported both online and offline. But for those using DFengage web, the notifications aren't used for that. So the email notifications or for participants using DFengage web, these new notification configurations aren't yet available. But it does support multiple languages. So for studies with patients in different countries using different languages, these new notifications do support those as well. But they do require both your server to be upgraded to DFdiscover 5.11 as well as DFengage to be upgraded to version 2.5. So before this release of 2.5, we had what we're calling generic notifications. So it's the same notification for all visits and studies. The notification timing is pretty limited. It would just show the notifications would appear when an activity became available, and then when an activity was overdue based off the timing defined in the visit map for the study. And so it worked very well, but it was pretty standard and pretty unflexible. And so with this new feature, you're able to have visit-specific notifications with custom messaging. There's a lot of flexibility in how you can define the timing of the notifications, and you can have multiple notifications per visit. So for example, you could have a notification 5 minutes before an activity becomes available, 15 minutes after if they haven't completed yet, 24 hours again after if they haven't completed it yet. So it gives you a lot of flexibility across each of the different visits to design how the reminders look to the participant as well as when they receive them. So this is all enabled through a new configuration we've added into DFsetup. So all the notifications, so once participants are upgraded to DFengage 2.5, so once they're using that new mobile app, it will be looking to this configuration from DFsetup to decide what notifications are sent to the participants. So you need to make sure that when you do upgrade to 5.10 and 2.5 that this configuration is saved in DFsetup. So that'll be a manual step for studies that are upgrading to save that configuration to initiate the reminders in DFengage 2.5. So I'll go into more detail about all the elements of the configuration, but we are tracking the changes in history, so similar to the plates and modules and styles history that we added a couple of releases ago. We're also tracking the changes to the notifications configuration as well. And we have the generic notifications from DFengage 2.4 and earlier pre-populated. You just need to manually save those for new and existing studies. So let's take a closer look at what actually gets included in the definition. So there's an ID for each notification that's auto-assigned. You create a label just to describe what the notification is for. And then you can make notifications inactive or active as well. So if you want to define them, but then you want to turn them off during testing or something, you can just make them inactive. And we have two different types of notifications. So one is a due notification. So that's due in reference in relation to when the visit becomes due, and then overdue, which is based on when the visit becomes overdue, when the activity is not yet completed. And then the visit reference can be either all visits, so you can have one notification that applies to all visits in this study, which is what the generic notifications use, but you can also specify an individual visit that the notification is relevant to. And it will use the timing that's defined in the visit map for both the due and the overdue. And then the notification timing. So this is where you have a lot of flexibility in terms of how you want to define the timing. So we have two different options. One is a set time where you just specify a clock time in 24 hours to say when you want that notification sent on the due date or on the overdue date. But we also have an offset from visit option. So this lets you set either before or after in days, hours, and minutes from the reference visit. So that gives you a lot of flexibility if you want to do multiple different notifications. If for some visits you want more sort of aggressive reminders to participants versus other visits have a longer window for completion, you could define that according to each visit. And then you also have the notification content that can be defined in the notifications dialog in DFsetup. So this is where you define the title and the message that appears in the push notification on the participant's device. There are character restrictions for both the title and the message. And we've seen that the title in particular could be truncated on different devices depending on the screen size. So you want to keep these brief and succinct for the participants. And you can include placeholders. So we have study name and participant name as placeholders that you can include in the notification content. And I mentioned that we support multi-language. So now you can also define the translations in the ePro notification dialog as well. So these are using the languages that you have defined in the translations configuration under the view menu. And so you'll see a drop-down list of all the available languages, and you'll see a filled green dot for any languages that have the translation defined, and you'll see the empty dot for any languages that don't have the content defined yet. And so DFengage will use these translations based off the study language that they selected, either auto-selected based off their device language or manually selected when they do the setup of DFengage. It will use the same language to send them those notifications. So I mentioned that the generic notifications that we've been using to date in DFengage 2.4 and DFengage 5.10 and earlier, these will be pre-populated in the ePro notifications configuration in DFsetup. So when you open it up in a new study or in a study that's been upgraded from 5.10, they'll be there, but they won't be pre-saved. So you'll need to save them in order to get them activated for both new and existing studies. You can totally modify these as you need to. You can make them inactive if you're adding your own custom notifications. You can change them. They're just pre-populated to make it easy to continue using the exact same notifications that are already in use, but you can modify them as needed. And we've added the configuration history for ePro notifications. So these are all the same changes are tracked. So this is available from the file menu under view history and config history. And there's also a history button right in the ePro notifications dialog. So this will show you who changed it and when, and then which parts of the definitions were changed at that time. We don't yet have any other configurations in this config history yet. This is our first configuration, but that will be more to come in the future. So those are the updates to the notifications for DFengage. So I'll move on to some of the new updates that we've added into DFweb. So we've added a new setting in DFweb available from the settings page called Disable Edit Checks. And this is in line with the same option that you have in DFexplore when you are using the when you're setting your validate mode, your save mode and level. And this is only available if you have the permission may disable edit checks under the DFexplore section in your role in DFadmin. So the role will determine whether users are allowed to disable their edit checks or not. The setting will be disabled by default and will always be disabled when you open the study. So it always needs to be manually turned on by the user when they're in the study. When the edit checks are disabled, both DFopen Study and DFopen Patient Binder will continue to run. It's just the on-plate, on-field edit checks that will be disabled. And there is some interaction between this setting and the edit check execution setting in the task. So when you define a task, you can indicate whether edit checks are disabled or not. So there's some interaction. So we just recommend that the disable edit check setting is turned off so that it doesn't interfere with the task definition when tasks are being run. And this update does require the DFdiscover server and API to be 5.11 or later, so you'll need to have the backend update as well as the DFweb update to get this new feature. The next update we've made in DFweb is a way to detect any connection issues that the user is facing after they log in. So we've been finding that there are organizations, cybersecurity is extremely important, and there are more and more ways that IT teams need to help address some of the security issues that they find. And so what ends up happening is sometimes the DFdiscover API gets blocked. And so the initial login to DFweb works, but then you can't actually connect to the study or load any data. So what we've done is added an extra detection step in there to see if that is an issue. And then we display a message to users with information about what's going on and share with them information that they can actually just copy and paste to send to their IT team. Typically, the solution is to allow list or whitelist the DFdiscover API endpoint. And so that information is included in the message, in the warning message. And we just have this whole block of text that can kind of be copied and shared with IT teams that have been working pretty well to date when this issue has come up with the support team. And we've also added a section to the DFweb user guide that's linked from the information shared with the IT. So if there's any questions about what DFweb is, what it's for, what DFdiscover is, there's information that should address those questions in the user guide. So hopefully that resolves some of the friction that users are seeing on first login, or even we see it sometimes mid-study that one day everything's working great, and then the next day they log in and something has changed, and they just need to go back to their IT team to get this sorted out. So it's an important, the IT teams are doing important cybersecurity work, but it just adds a little extra step for some of us. The other update we've made to DFweb is to improve how the access links are displayed in the ePro management section of DFweb. So we've added a way to control for each study whether you're using the DFengage web app or the DFengage mobile app, or both of them, or either one of them, both of them together. So we know some studies only want participants using the mobile app, or only want the participants using the web app. So we've given some more control over that in the DFsetup global settings under the ePro section. So there's a drop-down menu that lets you choose mobile and web, mobile only, or web only. And then based off that, DFweb will display the correct access links. So if you're using DFengage web, we have our public DFweb at DFengage web at dfengage.dfdiscover.com, which also directs users to the mobile application if they're on a mobile device. But if you are hosting your own DFengage web, it will use the link defined in the DFengage with the DFengage FQDN parameter in the DFEDC service configuration file. So that will be defined by the system administrator. So this just gives you more control where the study wants to be more clear about which of the DFengage options they're using, or just make it clear to the site that they can choose the mobile or the web app when they're sharing the links or displaying the QR code for the participants when they're getting them onboarded, or when they're helping them get access to the app if they've lost their bookmark or they're on a different device. So the next feature we have is an update to the DFdiscover server to do some initial support of SMS, so text messaging from DFdiscover. So this is sort of our initial implementation. There will be more to come. I wouldn't call this we're not fully supporting SMS yet. This is sort of the starting point. So currently SMS is region limited, and it's only available for two-factor authentication at this point, and it's user specific. So by default, this is going to be disabled because we don't support all regions yet. We don't have a way to have multiple SMS services for different regions at this point. So that'll be coming in the future. So for now, it's disabled, but it can be enabled by the system administrator. And the default configuration we have in place right now is North America only. So USA, Puerto Rico, and Canada are supported. but each server, each DFdiscover server can add their own Azure SMS configuration as well, with your own sender and service information. So that can be configured for each individual server. And so what this supports so far is just replacing the email option for two-factor authentication with text messages instead of email. So I'll go into a little bit more detail of how it actually works. So the first step is to have the system administrator enable and configure SMS for the server. So this is defined in the DFEDC service configuration file. And so as I mentioned, we have a default configuration that you can use, but you can also apply your own if you've registered for your own Azure SMS service and sender. But each DFdiscover server can only have one Azure SMS server, sender, and message template for everyone on that server. So it needs to be shared across all studies. And then once that has been configured and is in place, then the study admin or the DFdiscover admin would enable 2FA via SMS for each user in DFadmin that they want to enable it for. So it's a manual change within DFadmin in the user profile. So we have a new field, which I'll show you in the next slide, that you enable for a specific user to set the, to use SMS instead of email for those security codes. And only the DFdiscover or study admin can set or change this. This isn't something that the user can control on their end. It's only something that can be configured in DFadmin. And if you have this enabled in DFadmin, the user profile needs to have the phone number, and it needs to be within the supported region. So once this is enabled for the user, the phone number is registered. The users will then receive their security code via SMS. So in order to log in, just like they do with the 2FA via email, they'll receive that security code by SMS instead. So if you have an unsupported phone number, or if the phone number is incorrect or has been entered incorrectly, they won't be able to log in. So obviously a caveat that you need to make sure they have just like you have to make sure they have the correct email address, you need to make sure they have the right phone number for SMS. This is supported across the desktop apps as well as DFweb, DFcollect, and DFengage. And users can update their phone number themselves in DFexplore or DFweb after they log in, but they can't change the method of 2FA, sorry. So they can't, if they're using SMS and then want to change it back to email, that's something that an admin has to do for them. So in DFadmin, we've updated the user profile screen under the Users tab with a new send code by field. So that has email as the default and then Azure SMS. And this field is only available when Azure SMS is enabled on the server. And if you do have Azure SMS selected for that user, you need to enter the phone number, and the phone number needs to include both the country code and the area code so that Azure knows where to send it. If it excludes that information, it's not going to know who to send it to. And DFdiscover isn't currently like validating or verifying the phone number to make sure that it's complete or correct or that it's within the supported region. So you need to double check that that number is correct. All right, moving on to some other additional updates. So staying on the theme of administration, we've added an option in the API to allow those with self-hosted APIs to restrict which DFdiscover servers the API can connect to. So if you have your own API set up and you want only your own hosted DFdiscover servers to connect to it, you can enable that, and any other servers trying to connect through your API will be rejected. So this improves security options for those who have their self-hosted environments. And this is achieved through the new DFWS authorized servers parameter in the DFWS configuration file. We also now support Nginx reverse proxy deployment. This is something we actually added in patches earlier this year. But what this does is allows you to run DFweb, DFengage web, as well as DFWS API, all on one FQDN with port 443. So it gives you more flexibility to run all of the API and web components together without having additional FQDNs or using additional ports. And we have a new Nginx configuration guide that has details about how to set this up. And if you do have any questions about this, for those who have self-hosted environments, reach out to the support team if needed. And a couple more updates around DFadmin. So we've updated the study permissions summary in the Studies tab to include the ePro admin permissions. We added those ePro admin permissions in the last release, but we neglected adding it to the study permission summary. So those are included there now for those of you who are using that study permission summary. And for study administrators, we've now added the option for you to see the history for users that you created yourself. So previously we blocked the user creation details for study admins. Only DFdiscover admins could see across. But we've now added if you were the one who created that user, you can see that history. Some important updates for DF Collect. So this was a big maintenance release for both DF Collect as well as the desktop applications. So we updated our core application framework QT, and that involved a lot of changes sort of behind the scenes. And so there are a lot of things that came alongside that, along with that change, in addition to some updated security requirements around Android and iPad and iOS. So both Android and iPad and iOS have updated version, minimum version requirements. So previously, I think it was Android version 5 we allowed, and I think it was iOS version 11, I think were the versions we supported before. But because of security changes, these have been changed. So those of you, for users who are using DF Collect 5.11, they'll need to be running these more recent operating system versions. And because of some of the other updates we've made, DF Collect, some of the interface elements aren't working as expected on smartphones. So if you're on actual phones or if you're on smaller tablets, we do recommend using a tablet size of 8.7 or larger, just because there are some interface pieces, some functionality that's not working very well on those smaller screens. Some more updates around eCRF display and printing in DF Explore. So we've updated, so for choice and check fields, previously the labels on eCRFs would just be truncated at the end of that first line. So it wouldn't be able to show long labels. Yeah, it was a big pain, I understand. And so we finally got that updated. So now they'll show on multiple lines. And we've also updated saving eCRFs to PDF. So we made an upgrade in the last release to support much longer prompts. We support up to 1,500 characters now in field prompts and tables. And as part of that change, we had to figure out how to split content over multiple different pages. And so we were finding that the pages would split like in the middle of a field or in the middle of a line. So we have fixed that now so that it will be split when the system can find white space in between lines. So one caveat is if you are using background colors, it might not be able to detect, there's no white space for it to detect. So make sure you're testing your CRF printing if you're using background colors to make sure that the PDF is still readable. So subject binder page label improvement. So in the last release, we added the option to group repeating visits in one folder in the subject binder in DF Explore. And so we see a lot of people using page map labels more. And so we found that unfortunately the default page label was being displayed for the pages when substitutions were being used. And so we've updated that so you'll actually see now the values with the substitutions. But one caveat is if you're using the field value substitution, so the N or ND substitutions in the page map, only going to see before the CRF is loaded in the subject binder, you'll only see the first one. So we don't support multiples yet. This is a bug we're going to fix in probably an upcoming patch. It's actually being worked on right now. So that you can actually see in this after image, so where you can see TIA, we see the date, but for headache and bruise, we don't have a date. It'll actually be able to pull in that date if it's been entered. So you'll be actually see that in the list. And I know like with concomitant meds or medical history or adverse events, it's really helpful just to see them all at once in that list. So we're going to fix that issue with the multiple labels or multiple field values in the page label. A couple of other updates that I wanted to mention. We've made some changes to how the system processes PDFs. So our previous PDF and image conversion system needed an upgrade, and we were seeing some issues where PDFs, when uploaded, were kind of unreadable. It turned into a unreadable text, and so we have improved that. We do still have to make some additional updates in order to continue to support the same level of ICR quality. So making sure that standard definition PDFs that are coming in for image-based processing in ImageView and DFexplorer, we want to make sure we're not losing any of the OCR quality. So we're going to do some additional work, but this fix will resolve quite a lot of issues that people were seeing with especially PDFs that were generated by like the Microsoft print to PDF. We were seeing issues there. This fix will resolve that. And just like with DF Collect, we made a big upgrade to Qt, sort of behind the scenes. So this helps us with long-term maintainability, performance improvements, compatibility enhancements in the future. And as part of this, you'll see some changes to different user interface elements. So you'll see things are a little bit different. I think we've seen some issues that we still need to fix. So if you do see things as you are working in the desktop apps, please let us know. We'll make sure it's on our list to fix in an upcoming release. So I just wanted to remind two important things that are kind of need to know for this upgrade. So with the DFengage mobile notifications, in order to activate those notifications for DFengage 2.5, make sure you save the ePro notification setup in DFsetup. And then for DF Collect, so the minimum operating system required is now Android 10 or later, or iPad iOS 16 or later for DF Collect 5.11. Okay, and my obligatory note about version compatibility, because this is something that always comes up. So we do support backwards compatibility with this release, just as we do for others, but the new features do require, depending on which features they are, require front-end or back-end updates. So if you're upgrading the back-end and you're upgrading your front-end, great, you're going to get everything. But if you are upgrading your back-end and not using the newest desktop application, so DFexplorer in particular, you're not going to get all those new features, but everything will continue working as normal before. And if you are using, say, the new DFweb or DF Collect, and the newest DFengage, but not yet upgrading your backend server, you won't be able to use all those new features, but things will continue working as expected. And just make sure that the version strict setting in DFadmin, that's the setting that controls compatibility across different versions. So we have 3 different options. You can define a minimum version that you want to support. You can allow all minor versions to be supported, or you can make sure that people are using the current version by using the only current version supported option. So if you are upgrading and everyone's on the latest version, but you want to continue to let them use the older version, just make sure you have that minimum version supported or all minor versions supported enabled for your study. And we have, just as a reminder, in the last couple of releases, we've made upgrades to TLS version 1.3. And so some of the earlier versions of the applications are no longer compatible with more recent releases. So that can happen when we need to make security updates and we can't continue to allow older versions connecting to newer versions. Okay, so I've covered a lot of what we've updated in these 2 releases, in 5.11 and 2.5, but of course there's always more. There's always more bug fixes. There's always more small improvements. And I try to cover everything that applies to as broad an audience as possible. But everyone kind of uses DFdiscover in different ways, and different things are important to you. So I do encourage you to check out the release notes, as well as the release highlights slides, which has more information than I was able to cover today. And we also have, of course, the user guides for all of our applications with more detailed documentation on all the different features that are included. DFengage 2.5 also has the benefit, we have a giant training slide deck for DFengage. We know it's a newer app for a lot of people, and so we've given quite a lot of background on how to get it set up. And the training slides include sort of from a participant's perspective, how to use it, things that the sites and the study team need to consider when using it, and then also the setup and administration part of it as well. So if you're starting to use DFengage or you're interested in using DFengage, that's a great resource to check out to learn more about it. And of course, reach out to us to learn more if you're interested as well. And just a reminder about the resources available on our website. So we have product updates, documentation, and downloads, as well as the DFnet Academy, all available through our website. So the resources are all available there to access as needed. Some elements do require an account. So if you're looking for API documentation, if you're looking for the server downloads, server installers, or you're looking for the DFnet Academy training videos for DF Explorer, you do require an account for the website, which you can sign up for right on the website. And we'll get you set up if you request an account. Okay, so now I just have a few minutes to talk about what's next. So what is the team working on? Here are some of the things we're looking at making available within the next year or so. So we're looking to add study branding into DFengage. So we want to be able to have allow the sponsors or the clients to sort of show their branding and sort of connect the patient to their other experiences in a study or with a sponsor. So that's going to be added to DFengage. I mentioned the repeating visits in one folder that we have in DF Explorer. We're going to add that to DFweb as well. The custom notifications that I was talking about today for DFengage Mobile, we're also planning to expand that into emails so that those custom reminders can be sent by email as well and not just by push notification. We're looking to expand the SMS functionality. So as I said, we only support one region at a time right now, but we're looking to support multiple regions per server. And we've, in the last bunch of releases, we have added expanded setup import from Excel. And so we're going to continue to improve on that so that Excel-based setup is more user-friendly and can be used to update studies as well as create new ones. And we're also looking to add embedded images into eCRFs and for ePro so that you can actually have images displaying on your eCRFs or in DFengage and that have that available both online and offline. Currently, you have to reference images hosted outside, and that can prove some challenges in some situations. So we're going to add some functionality to improve that as well. All right, well, thanks so much for joining. Appreciate everyone's time being here and hope you enjoy the rest of your day and week. Take care, everybody.